All right, good afternoon, everybody. I guess this is on. All right, welcome to this, the first meeting of the 2024 Finance Executive Committee schedule. It's the regularly scheduled meeting. I'm Howard Shook. I'll be chairing this year. We have Ms. Keishawn Waits. Welcome to the FEC. Jason Winston, the rest of returnees, Mr. Winston, Mr. Wan, Mr. Hillis, and Ms. Collier Overstreet. So welcome back. We will be, I'll call the meeting to order, and I will move to adopt the agenda as printed. Second by Juan. Let's open that vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
The ayes have it. Agenda's adopted. You've all carefully pored over the minutes of the prior meeting. Motion to approve, which I will second. Let's open that vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
At the meeting, the minutes have been approved from the prior meeting, and now it is time for the much-awaited selection of the vice chair for this year. I'd like to open the nominations. I'd like to nominate Mr. Wan. Are there any other nominations? No. The nominations are now closed. Let's open that vote on Mr. Wan.
The vote is open.
That's with apologies
The
to
vote's
Sam
closed.
Cassell, by the way. Mr. Wan, congratulations. Would you care to make any remarks? Okay.
Onward.
All right, now it's time to discuss the dreaded goals and objectives. And Ms. Lindo, you circulated last year's to everybody, or was it just me so far?
Just you, Mr. Chair.
So send out last year's to remind us what they were, along with your update as to where we've ended up, as that usually makes a good starting point for fashioning the ones we will want to roll forward with. All right.
Will do.
All right, and it's public speaking time. Has anyone signed up?
We have no speakers, Mr. Chair.
Moving right along to presentations, reports, and updates. First, we're going to hear from Ms. LaShondra Burks on the Public Safety Training Center financing update, and you should have been sent a printed slide deck. Anytime you're ready. Afternoon.
Executive Committee. My name is LaShondra Burks, and I serve as the Deputy Chief Operating Officer for the City of Atlanta. And thank you for the opportunity to come before you today to give you an update on the financing pieces for the City of Atlanta's Public Safety Training Center for our fire and police departments. What you will see right here, we'll do just a little bit of background, and then we'll get into the financing piece on where we are with our budget. So what you have before you is the current site plan for the Public Safety Training Center. Again, happy as we get through this presentation to answer any questions that you may have. There is nothing that has changed on this site plan since you have received it over the last few months. Our core campus, just to give you an idea, this part of the campus is where our leadership and academic buildings will be. Both of these buildings are two of the buildings that will have public access. A few more renderings. To your top left is our training fire station. To your top right is what we will call our fire simulator building. This will give our firefighters an opportunity to actually engage in what it's like on preparing for a fire or an emergency before going out. At your bottom left is our horse stables, which we are very, very excited about to move our horse stables to a really nice space as well. And then to your bottom right is our fire burn building. And as you know, our current fire burn building has been condemned for some time. So this is a needed asset for our firefighters as well. Additional photos, just to give you some additional renderings of the campus to include a workout room for our public safety staff. And what we do know is as we continue to hear of different situations happening with our public safety staff, the need for wellness, we are really, really honing in on and creating an entire wellness division for police and fire in order to make sure that all of our public safety personnel are taking care of themselves. And you also see the leadership building in this as well. Going to some updates on our development. In September of 2023, we provided a written update to the City Council on our development progress. And at the time, this is the slide that you received in September of 2023, and we were right at 65% through the entire development process. As of today, this is an update as of January 2024. We are right at 75% through the development process. We have completed all of the pre-construction work, and we are in the beginning phases of the actual construction work. Our building permits, we gave you an update on this in September as well. When we gave you an update on this one, only the first two buildings we had received building permits for, that was the leadership and the academic buildings. We now have permits for the fire training station, the kennels, the stables, the bridge, which is right near the creek. There are 4 simulator buildings, as you may remember from previous presentations. We currently have permits for 3 of the 4 buildings, and we have submitted the applications for the burn tower and the firing range, and we are waiting on those to come back. Just a quick overview of some of the legislation that was passed over time for the Public Safety Training Center. The first one was in September of 2021, which you can see the ordinance number, and this was the authorization for the ground lease for the approximately 85 acres of land to the Atlanta Police Foundation in order to take on the development of the training center. In September of 2021, there was also legislation passed, December of 2021, there was legislation passed which authorized the Chief Financial Officer to go back and identify funding for up to $35 million for the city's investment in the Public Safety Training Center. And then on June the 5th of 2023, this body approved Ordinance 230-1257, which was in response to the December 6th resolution, where we committed $30 million of uncommitted general fund balance and $1 million from the Atlanta Police Department's impact fees in order to build the gymnasium. So a $31 million commitment overall from the City of Atlanta towards the Public Safety Training Center. Now I want us to look at our budget. So our budget for the Public Safety Training Center is now at $109.6 million, and you can see the specific number there. And whenever there's a cost difference from what you originally thought that you were planning, we always ask several questions. Why? What happened? And we also ask, how can I close the gap? So allow me to talk a little bit about each one of those as it relates to this budget. And I'll spend most of my time in the yellow highlighted area under other fees for the $14.1 million. The frequency and intensity of the attacks and the opposition of the training center, including a recent defacing of the Landmark Manuals Tavern, have contributed significantly to the increase in the estimated cost for the training center from $90 million to $109.6 million. So far, we have had, and Chief Sherbaum had a press conference this morning to go over a lot of these specifics. But so far, we have had 8 weeks of action, 1 block cop city week, 23 arsons, damaging over 81 items that were either damaged or destroyed. We have had 27 victims, and that is companies and private individuals who have had over 100 threats and acts of violence towards them. Because of these actions, we have had to increase our outside security by $6 million. $6 million for outside security. That does not include APD officers who are on 12-hour shifts covering out at the actual site. This is outside security to protect as much as we possibly can individuals and companies who are being targeted because of their involvement with the building of our Public Safety Training Center. That also required an increase in our insurance. The insurance on the project increased by $400,000. And as you know, we made a commitment to additional erosion controls and inspections that cost us more than $227,000. We've also had unanticipated legal fees, almost at $1 million. And this is not the city's legal fees. This is outside counsel specifically towards several lawsuits that we have had. So far, we have had 4 efforts by the South River Watershed Alliance Incorporated to stop the construction for violation of the environmental requirements. Today, just this morning, we received notice from the United States District Court, Northern District of Georgia, Atlanta Division, that the city successfully defended, this is the 4th time, that we have successfully defended against a request for injunctive relief by the South River Watershed Alliance. Again, every time a lawsuit is filed, we have to act on it. We have to defend it. And out of 4 times, with an additional almost $1 million in legal fees, we have been successful in not stopping the development of the Public Safety Training Center. It is important, though, for me to reiterate that even though we have seen an increase in the cost, there will be no additional city or taxpayers' dollars going towards this project. There will be no additional city taxpayer dollars going towards this project. The philanthropic community and the broader community support has been unmeasurable, despite the violence against some of them personally that they have experienced. And we are confident in working closely with the foundation that any gaps in this project will be filled. So again, we have gone from $90 million project to a $109 million project, and I have covered some of the reasons for the increases in the cost, but I want to again reiterate that there will be no additional dollars other than the $31 million that we have committed through this body of council going towards this process. A little bit about our community input, which has been very important for us. And I will say this is the good part that has increased some of our costs towards the Public Safety Training Center. As many of you know, we have the Community Stakeholder Advisory Council that submitted recommendations on how to improve the project. All of their recommendations were accepted by the foundation. Some of them include relocating our firing range to the most southern part of the site. That recommendation was accepted. It came with a small price tag. Meeting rooms. We made one of the buildings a little larger so that we could have more public access for meeting rooms. They asked for a 100-foot minimum tree buffer around the property. We have included that as well. They asked that we move the main entrance to Constitution Road, which is more the industrial side off of Key Road. We have committed to doing that. And they asked for sidewalks around the facility in order to provide access to the community. Again, all of these things that are listed here were recommendations from the Community Stakeholder Advisory Council that we have taken into consideration and will be implementing. The second phase of community input was an additional layer with the Mayor's South River Forest and Public Safety Training Center Task Force. With this task force, we hosted over 20 meetings, 40 plus individuals who participated on this task force. They served in 4 subgroups: parks and green space, visioning, memorializing, and repurposing the former Atlanta prison farm site, the Sustainability and Resilience Subcommittee, Police, Fire, and E911 training curriculum. We received right at 102 recommendations in August of 2023 from this particular group. All of the recommendations were received, acknowledged, and supported by Mayor Dickens, and our city departments are moving forward with implementation of those. I will say before we take questions or do comments that for ongoing updates on the community work, the progress of what we are calling our modern, best-in-class 21st century public safety training center for fire and police, with curriculum around anti-bias training, de-escalation techniques, and proportionality, we ask that anyone stay abreast with our website, which is www.atltrainingscenter.com. And with that, I will take any questions or comments that you may have. Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. I'll start off. I've been trying to do the math here as you've been.
Sure.
So we're about 19 million. It's going to cost 19 million more than the last figure we were looking at.
Yes, sir.
Described around 6 million of that to the need for additional security measures.
Yes.
Increased insurance because of damage and vandalism, et cetera, out there, around 400K.
Yes, that's the increased amount in insurance.
About $1 million in unanticipated additional legal fees.
Yes.
That's about a third of the 19. So,
and we have some other fees that were associated with some of the recommendations from the community.
okay, well, that was my next question. I wanted to be sure that the changes, modifications, additions, improvements, whatever the response to the stakeholder group,
Yes.
that's also part of the 19 million.
Yes, sir.
No, we have people waiting in the queue. Mr. Hillis, followed by Ms. Bakhtiari, who has joined us, and then Mr. Wan. Mr. Hillis.
Thank you, Chair Shook. Thank you, Ms. Burks, for the presentation. I guess the first question and then a related question. In regards to the legal fees, and I mean, I've suggested this and throughout the years because I think it would hold departments more responsible for issues that generate us legal problems, but why are legal fees being counted as part of this project cost? And then the related question is, you just mentioned one of the lawsuits that was lost by the filer. So are the courts ordering that generally many times you lose a lawsuit, you have to pay the legal fees of the defendant? So we're both those questions, and I may have some more.
Sure. So I want to be clear, the legal fees that we're showing here that are almost $1 million of unanticipated legal fees are those that are having to be paid by the foundation. They're part of their representation. Our city attorney, Ms. Hicks, will have to discuss what that means from the city side, because that is an additional cost. So these are the unanticipated legal fees just for the foundation that they are having to incur regarding these lawsuits as well. So it's the city and the foundation that's having to pay out. These are the unanticipated costs for the foundation. And again, Ms. Hickson would have to answer what that is for the city.
Ms. Robinson, can you address any of that plus the, you mentioned one that the order came in this morning, or Ms. Burks mentioned, are the courts ordering that these folks filing and losing lawsuits pay our legal fees?
Good afternoon, Amber A. Robinson, City of Atlanta Department of Law. Of course, we'll defer to Deputy COO Burks concerning the how it's being divvied between the city's legal costs versus the foundation's costs. And I do believe that would be correct, that we would need to follow up with the city attorney concerning any breakdown of the city of Atlanta's legal costs, but of course we can do that. In regards to the award of costs and fees, that is an individualized case-by-case determination during any litigation. So there's not any general, from our side, there is not any kind of like overall rule which would guarantee it or anything like that. So that is also something that we would need to drill down on a case-by-case basis. But again, we'd be happy to do that.
Yeah, I know it's case by case, but I would certainly hope that that's something that either our legal team or our outside counsel are asking for or demanding in the hearings, that those be paid. But I look forward to the follow-up, and please reach out when you have some updates on both of those.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Bakhtiari.
Try that again. Hey, Ms. Burks. Thank you all for being here and for the presentation. I want to go through some basic things first before I get to the fun questions that I'm certain we'll all enjoy. Main one is, so the piece on no explosives. So that's something that's come up a lot from my constituent base because of their proximity to the site. So will there be no more, there will be no more explosives? I saw the explosive removal. I just wanted to reiterate for the record, there will be no explosives at this site. We're talking.
Absolutely. That has been a commitment from Chief Sherbaum and the team that there will be no more explosives at the site.
I just wanted to make sure to reiterate that for the record because it's repeatedly come up. And even though I have said that, there seems to, like, again, I'm countered with additional questions. So I just wanted to make sure. You said no additional dollars are going, no more tax dollars are going to the site. And question about that is, does that mean, as our E9, I know that had been discussed earlier that this was a potential location for our new E911 center. Does that mean that it will definitively not be going here?
That does not mean that it will definitively not be going there. There's not we have not completed the assessment on where E911 will go, but there is funding in the infrastructure bond for E911.
Will you state how much that is again so I could?
It's $15 million in the infrastructure bond for E911.
Understood. And again, the question that has repeatedly come up is about the contracting out of the site potentially by outside bodies. Now, we did legislate that council would have final sign off on that if and when that does happen. Is that correct?
Yes, that is a part of the legislation, the most recent legislation that was adopted in December by this body for around the $31 million. It was a part of that legislation. And the team that will be working that they're already putting together an operations team. And that team knows that the first priority for this site is for Atlanta, specifically our fire and police departments. We have talked about including public works for garbage truck training and driving, anything that we could do to bring down our incidents and accidents in any city department before considering outsiders.
Has there also been any consideration to partnering with any of the surrounding counties to make this available to them so they wouldn't have to build their own facilities?
We have not had those conversations. We have been focused on the development, how we're going to operate it, and what it means for our city departments first.
Understood. And the other thing I was hoping was the environmental pieces that you have cited in here. Is there any way to also receive copies of those, the wetland surveys, et cetera, to just see what they have uncovered?
Sure.
Appreciate that. So something, the training piece as well is something that's also been a continuous concern from my constituency, and I understand that the second task force that was assembled was also going to be weighing in on the training pieces. Do we have anything, because I don't believe that we've received any updates onto what that will look like?
Sure. So one of the subcommittees from the Mayor's South River Forest and Public Safety Training Center Task Force was looking at the curriculum for police, fire, and E911. And they have some recommendations as a part of those 102 recommendations. All of the meetings are on the website, and the notes from the meetings, the final report, as well as the mayor's response on atltrainingscenter.com. But happy to send you the link to that so you can pull it up, so you can go directly to the report that they issued, and it's broken down by each of the subcommittees. So there is a section specifically dealing with the curriculum and recommendations and how they will be addressed.
Thank you. And something I did want to bring up, because I do have questions about some of the flooding issues that have been reported. That's why I want to see some of the environmental reports, and so that we can speak more about that. Another piece is kind of questions about minority participation on the contract and how that's competitively been bid out. We have asked, and again, this is not, I want to be very clear, Deputy Chief, that this is not on you in any way, shape, or form, but I do have a question. We have asked the Police Foundation as part of our legislation to come and report to this committee, and I believe that has been missed. How many times, former Chair Juan, how many times has that been punted now? Yeah, so, and former Chair Juan has made the request also for them to come, and they have punted every single time, because there are certainly questions on here. I appreciate the presentation, but there are questions on here that we need to be able to ask them for the sake of transparency. And it is a problem that they have punted about 4 times now for these meetings. So anything that you could do to help make that presentation happen, because it was legislated, it was committed to. The former chair of this committee made multiple requests, and it still has not happened. So
it is my understanding that Councilmember Juan's request on the budgeting piece, that this would satisfy that. But the legislation did not require for them to come to FEC quarterly. We can go back and look at that. I can tell you that the minority participation from what we have been tracking is right at about 32% of the project. But happy to, if you have some questions that you would like very specific, we can work on getting those answered for you.
thank you. Again, no, you're correct. The legislation that was authored was about quarterly reports to PSLA,
Yes.
which I still don't believe has happened. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that needs to occur. But specifically, Councilmember Juan, we made the request specifically of this agency to come and to be on the record, because from my understanding, due to some of their 501c3 statuses or something or other, they're not subject to open records requests. So we wanted to have them here to answer these questions, because that has not been done. And again, there are things that they need to be asked on the record to be accountable to, not in the privacy of closed doors or off the record. So I would really like the opportunity to question them. It doesn't need to be there won't be wrestling mouths rolled out here and there'll be like a fight of some kind. That's not my intention in any way, shape, or form. The intention is to be able to question them on the record for transparency around this project that a number of us have, and I want to be able to ask that of them on the record, because that has been a consistent issue.
Okay. And again, if you would like to share some of those.
But absolutely,
more than
I will
happy to
share
that.
those
I know
questions with
we've
you.
had several meetings with you and the foundation present. So I'm assuming those weren't answered then, but definitely more than happy to have further discussions with you around that.
Yes, new questions come up as things progress.
Sure.
But I'm happy, of course, to submit those to you, but it was disheartening to see them punt so many times. And I am curious as to why, but I will submit those questions to you, made my formal ask, and that concludes my questions as of right now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple of quick questions for you, Deputy COO. So the delta on the expense side, not the additional fees, but the construction budget side, you attributed a lot of that just to scope change, some of the requests from the task force and all that. What about construction costs right now? Does that play any part, or has it actually moved in our favor in terms of budget numbers?
We were surprised that it moved in our favor a little bit.
Yeah.
Again, what we are learning is that some of those who are taking on this project are doing so because of their commitment to what this project will bring, the training of our police and firefighters. Some are doing at cost or what have you. And so that has been encouraging. So I would say it's gone a little bit in our favor, not as much as we really had hoped because of the other expenses. But the contractors and the subcontractors are really, really committed to the work of this project, and they don't see it just as a project.
Yeah, I was surprised that that wasn't your lead story in terms of the delta. I thought I was a little nervous that we would get caught in the upswing, but then I was relieved to see that the industry is starting to experience some pullback on costs. So that's good to know. The legal fees that the city of Atlanta has incurred, is that something that can be quantified and shared with, that may have been a request already, but if not, I wanted to make that formal request.
Yes, as a matter of fact, I'm working on that, and I'll be able to report that to this committee shortly.
Thank you. The change orders in terms of scope that have impacted the budget and the construction cost side, what's the decision process on that? How is the city involved or not with the foundation in terms of saying yay or nay to the request?
So most of them are done through teams from police and fire, because what they want to make sure is whatever changes are made work for them, since that's who they're building for. I will say, and you all can correct me if I'm wrong, but there was a lot of pre-engagement work between police and fire, even before designing, laying out, just trying to get an idea of what worked. They visited many different locations to see what worked. And I think Bressfield and Gorey did a great job of kind of laying out a scope in pricing. I think their experience in pricing helps also in re-engineering in order to help make sure that the cost is where it should be, but still providing police and fire what they need for training. And so I will say whenever there's a change, like the community scopes, changes, we were all a part of that process. And so they all really made sense. And we wanted to make sure that we heard them loud and clear. It did not impact the training parts of it. It really impacted the public spaces and the surrounding spaces that impact their community. So that was definitely receptive. But any of the scopes and changes of work really do go through a committee from police and fire to make sure it still works and benefits what they need for training.
All right, I'm relieved to hear that. While I appreciate the fact that they're absorbing any changes in terms of seeking that from the philanthropic community, I think it's real important that the city is at the table with regard to whether it makes sense for the project and that we can push features that we want to make sure are incorporated that in that context. The last thing I'll say, though, is that it loops me back to the request in terms of the foundation's governance and the request that we've made to them in terms of considering 2 council member on their board. And I don't know, have y'all had any more conversations about that? Because that also would alleviate a lot of the concerns that we in the public may have about decisions around the center and kind of the partnership with APD. So do you know where that might be at, or do you happen to know where that is at this point?
I do not know where it is at this point. I remember the legislation going forward. I know that it was council-led legislation, so we may have assumed that council reached out to them, but we're more than happy to join you all in those efforts.
All right, I'll follow up with you. I mean, because a lot of these questions around, the governance and the decisions and the finances and the budget and the scope could be kind of addressed if we had participation on their board as well. So thank you. Okay. That concludes my questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Howard. Chair Shook for letting me get a few questions in. But so looking at the percentage-wise, it looks like we're at about an 18% increase in overall project overruns if you count all the legal fees, all the construction costs. What percentage of that is hard construction, like the actual construction of the facility?
I don't have that in front of me. I can get back to you with it. I don't even want to give out a number. Let me get back with you on that one, but I will give that to you.
Okay, because I know, if you look at national averages, it could be anywhere from 10 to 15%. Seems like we're tracking below that level right now in terms of construction cost increase overall. And so just be curious to see how that's broken down in between, some things that are a little bit out of our control versus what's in our control. And it kind of goes back to, Councilmember One's point of, how do we look at what's necessary going forward in terms of changing the scope of the project and really working with council and the administration and seeing what's important going forward. My other question is around, future contingency plan. Obviously, we're still in the throes of legal proceedings that are going forward. There is a potential threat of actually seeing construction costs, and inflation is still, kind of unknown at this point. What is our contingency plan going forward?
So we do have, so there are two. We do have, one of the requirements was for us to increase the contingency in the budget. So we have increased the contingency from 3 to 6%. But also still getting commitments from the philanthropic community to fill whatever gaps come in. We still have some people who are expressing interest that the foundation is continuing to meet with. So it will either, if the contingency budget that we have is not enough, we feel confident that we'll raise the remainder through philanthropic dollars.
Okay, and then lastly, just based on, construction timelines, are we still on track to at least see APD in the facility by the end of the year?
We are on track to complete December of this year, hopefully with everybody in January, having training classes, really being an active site is what the hope is.
All right, thank you. I yield.
Thank you.
Back, Jerry.
Sorry, just 2 more questions.
Okay.
Just wanted to say there's no chance of fire's footprint being diminished in any way on this site, like there being a change up in any kind of way, because
No, absolutely not. That we haven't had any conversations around that. So far, the scope is still the same as what was proposed. Actually, and I wanted to add this one too, the emergency vehicle obstacle course, the EVOC course that we talk about a lot, is probably larger than most courses because we wanted to make sure that it was large enough for fire as well. As you look at other training facilities, most of them are just for police cars. And I keep looking at them because I need some assurances that I'm right. But we made sure in this scope of work from the very beginning, as they were meeting with both police and fire, that there was an EVOC course large enough for fire as well. So we have not, and they still have the fire training facility, the classroom space, everything that fire was always set out to have is still a part of the scope.
Okay. And just want to state for the record, Chief, I would love to get with you to talk about Citizen Review Board. I know we've mentioned that, so that's something I'll follow up with you about. The other piece is I want to share that wellness component we talked about. I know we said APD and fire. I also wanted to make sure that that included E911 callers because of the mental hits that they take, obviously, with their job. Just for the audience, they're nodding.
I'm hearing yes.
Okay. And then last piece is speaking into that legislation about the quarterly reports to PSLA, what can we do to get that started? What would need to happen?
I mean, we can definitely work with the chair of Public Safety Legal Administration and figure out how they want to handle that.
Okay. I want to make it clear that's something I want to continue to follow up on because I would like for that legislation to be realized. So I will follow up with you about that offline.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
All right, I guess I'll wrap up with a request, one of which is to Community Stakeholder Advisory Council recommendations, which have added to the 19. Could you attach some dollar figures to that so that I can get a better sense of, and then I guess I'll put this question to the CFO for a capital construction project of this magnitude. And maybe you already know the answer, but even if you don't, what would you guesstimate the effect of inflation to be?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So we've been seeing across even our enterprise funds significant increases in their capital projects, and between even what was legislated and what eventually ends up being the final cost. So we've seen increases 15% or so just on these most recent projects. If they were approved even a couple years ago, we've seen stuff as high as 20% over the original plan budgets. So that has been impacting us, and we have real data in our own enterprises of seeing that happen. But as you know, we've been in a high inflationary environment over the last couple of years. Inflation alone, one year was 6%, next year was 7%, this year's at 3%. So you add those up across a 3-year period, and you're looking at anywhere from 15% on up easily, just core inflation dollars. But like when I've talked to Ms. Brooks about this, this isn't any shocking news in terms of projects being more than anticipated. What's been a little bit kind of different about this is the type of increases we've been seeing. So we're seeing increases from things that traditionally we don't see, right? Around additional security and insurance and other costs other than core construction costs.
Sure.
Which we've seen in our traditional projects.
Thank you. I'm just trying to get to 19. Ms. Robinson, did you perhaps have some of that information for us?
Yes, I do have the breakdown as of December, what our outside counsel legal costs have been related to this matter. So the total is $1,200,738.17. So that's spread over two different outside counsel firms in two kind of separate tracks of matters. One is the environmental, and the other is the challenges related to the referendum matter. And as far as the costs are concerned and requests for costs and fees, I did want to state on the record that whilst we're very happy about the results we're receiving thus far, but these matters do still remain ongoing. And it is not until the litigation is really concluded at the, very end of it that we would be in a position to be able to make that request to the court for costs and fees. So we're just not at that stage yet.
All right, thank you. We'll look forward to getting this the follow-up information, and we do need to have a discussion about whether some of this is finance, some of this is PSLA. If so, how much goes to what committee, and the sooner we get that straightened out, the better everyone can kind of form their expectations. All right, if there's nothing else, Ms. Burks, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we have another report. Commissioner Sankey is here to give us the AIM Quarterly.
All right. Good afternoon, Chair Shook and members of the Finance Executive Committee. I am Jason Sankey, Chief Information Officer for the city, overseeing the Department of Atlanta Information Management. I want to start by thanking the employees of AIM for their continued hard work. As the technology support arm of the city, we are always on call, and we proactively provide support as needed, which sometimes gets unnoticed, unlike an outage, which always gets noticed. So to the employees of AIM, I just want to say thank you. And I just want to mention most of the information within this update is as of November 30th. AIM was initially scheduled to present the quarterly update in December. However, December data is reflected where information was available in time for submission. Okay. In support of the mayor's vision, I've shared in the past AIM's vision, mission, and core values of trust, accountability, collaboration, service, and integrity, as well as our strategic pillars of strengthening the core, increasing alignment, innovate and accelerate, application modernization, and workforce planning and development. In support of the mayor's 4 pillars of one safe city, a city of opportunity for all, a city built for the future, and an effective and ethical government, we have also aligned our main focus areas to support these pillars. And these include ensuring a secure environment, reliability of our services, enhanced customer experience, and employee growth. And these pillars highlight the fact that within our department, everything we do is centered around these 4 focus areas because we truly feel as if technology is the nucleus of the city. We all touch technology on a daily basis. Our general fund personnel salary budget for fiscal year 24 is approximately $9 million. We are currently forecasting a fiscal year overage of approximately $342,000, which is less than the initial start of the year where our projection was roughly $700,000. So we came down roughly 50%. As of November 30th, we had 11 vacancies, which we are actively recruiting for those vacancies. In fiscal years 25 and 26, again, I want to continue to decrease our reliance on contracted staff, as I reported previously, and I've included our projected need from both highly critical and critical positions that we are currently utilizing contracted staff. On the next page, this dashboard represents both our personnel and non-personnel operating budget, our forecast, and our budget consumption. And as of November 30th, our consumption was roughly 39%. From a project perspective, speaking of effective and ethical government, we have prioritized reducing the total cost of ownership from a technology perspective throughout the city. And in calendar year 23, we realized a savings of approximately $2 million. City built for the future. I am excited about the Mobile Innovation Lab. We are looking to enhance constituent experience by delivering tailored technology solutions that improve access and experience within the city via technology. We are moving forward with a proof of concept and we'll have results later this quarter. A city of opportunity for all. We are now up to 46 interactive kiosks throughout the city. 14 of those are in underserved communities. We have also realized revenue of approximately $500,000. This includes guaranteed revenue to the city of $10,000 per kiosk annually with additional 50% revenue sharing from advertising. And I know there were concerns when we initially put forward this legislation regarding the use of these kiosks in previous years due to the actual lack of revenue received. So this is proving to be a good partnership for the city where our initial investment was at $0. For projects impacting the community, we recently closed 2 projects and we have several projects supporting the mayor's 4 pillars. We are also in the process of redeveloping the intranet for the city, known as CityNet. And our primary goal is to make the site actually valuable for employees so they actually use it. It's a site they regularly want to visit based on the rich content that it provides. And we plan on launching that intranet later this quarter. Performance highlights. We recently leveraged a contract with Infotech Research Group, and we conducted a citywide diagnostic report for AIM. We are currently in the process of analyzing the data. We received it in December, but I did share some highlights here. 20 departments participated. Overall IT satisfaction received a score of 76%. IT value received a score of 77%. The results were benchmarked against 831 municipalities. Service desk and network reliability scored very high for AIM. And I would like to also mention there are definitely areas that we looked at improving based on the results, but we now have the actual data from our departments that support the improvements that we are looking to address. Moving on to legislation, we have 32 total legislations for FY24. 44% of our contracts have already been executed. 37 are in the process of being executed. and 19 are upcoming before the end of this fiscal year. We also have 4 legislations currently moving through the process and will be presented at FEC shortly, and we have 8 competitive bids currently in various project stages. From a performance perspective, the average time to complete a ticket remains lower as compared to our last calendar year. We have also seen a decrease in the number of tickets that have been received, and that's about 6,000 less, which is significant. Since April, we have continued to exceed our SLA targets. And from an outage perspective, the last significant outage, it spanned over 10 days, and it was during the end of June, beginning of July, due to an issue with Microsoft where Office 365 impacted a small group of users throughout the city. Moving on to our project data, as of November 30th, we had a total of 131 active projects, with 7 in a caution status, 3 critical. We have now reduced that number to 1 project in a critical status, and this project is an infrastructure project where we're decommissioning one of our domains, and project schedule has been the main driver of the critical status. From August through November, we opened a total of 21 new projects within AIM, and we closed 11. With that, I want to thank you for your time, and I look forward to answering any questions you may have.
Thank you. Commissioner colleagues, Mr. Wan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First question I have is around the budget numbers that you mentioned. You said that originally y'all were forecasting a deficit of about $700,000, but that's since shrunk to a smaller number. What's attributing to that? Because it doesn't look like you're necessarily cutting back on. Is it personnel? Is it vacant positions?
Yeah, it's been the ebb and flow of vacant positions. So it takes a good 30 to 60 days to get through a process of finding a candidate, and that works in our advantage from a budget standpoint.
Yeah, I was just going to say, especially for your department, I'm not an advocate for cutting back on expenses or that just work that needs to be done. Yours is not an area that we should be, not investing what we had originally planned on for that reason. And the second question is around the IKE machines. I'm just going to make a request to your department that before they get installed, I would imagine this probably holds for all district council members, just that we are part of that conversation. I mean, I was just looking through, I've gotten 2 just basically emails from the department saying, oh, there's a new one active up in your district now, and we had no idea that they were going in. I think at least from my district, folks are open to having them, but I think having that conversation around specific location, even placement where it is relative to the street, is helpful. I can think of one where it's on the one intersection corner that has the least amount of foot traffic, which, it's great for visibility in terms of their ad revenue, but I'm not sure that it's accomplishing what our city's goal should be in terms of usage. So just that request for future site evaluations to consult us if you can.
I will definitely follow up with the project team. We have those sites already identified. We'll get that out to all council for input going forward.
Anyone else? All right. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
All right, Ms. Lindo, if you're ready, could you sound our first reads, please?
Yes, Mr. Chair. The first item is 2040-1014. This is an ordinance by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the Chief Financial Officer on behalf of the Atlanta Department of Transportation to pay all outstanding invoices to Georgia Power Company for the removal, relocation, or adjustment of electrical and communication facilities owned by Georgia Power Company for the construction of South Route 260 Glenwood Avenue at South Route 42 Moreland Avenue intersection improvement project in amount not to exceed $12,000. All invoices to be charged to and paid from the fund department organization and account numbers listed herein. And for other purposes, item number 2 is 24O-1015. This is an ordinance by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the mayor as designee on behalf of the City of Atlanta to execute an agreement granting the Metropolitan Rapid Transit Authority an agreement to purchase approximately 14,290 square feet of land, more or less, on city-owned property located at the southern end of Ridge Avenue above the intersection of Hank Aaron Drive and University Avenue in Atlanta, Fulton County, in land lot 74 of the 14th District, being more particularly described on Exhibit A, and for the purposes of construction, maintenance, and operation of the Summerhill Capitol Avenue Bus Rapid Transit Project, waiving any conflicting provision of Article 10, Division 14, subsection 3 of the Atlanta City Code of Ordinances, and for other purposes.
Thank you. That takes us to our regular agenda. First of which is item 3, 23O-1693, an ordinance by Finance Exec on behalf of Atlanta Department of Transportation to amend the ordinance listed, which was adopted by the council on the dates listed, by adding an additional funding source, all other parts of legislation to remain unchanged, and for other purposes. There's a motion to approve. It's a second by Mr. Winston. Any other questions or comments? There being none, let's vote.
The vote is open. The vote's closed.
Let the ayes have it, so ordered. That takes us to 23O-1694, an ordinance by Finance Exec on behalf of the Department of Transportation of Atlanta to amend the ordinance indicated, which was adopted on the date indicated, by authorizing the Chief Procurement Officer to issue purchase orders under the Georgia Department of Transportation grant agreement, all other parts of legislation to remain unchanged, and for other purposes. As a motion by Mr. Wan, which I will second. Does anyone have any questions or comments? Seeing none, let's open the vote.
The vote is open. Will everyone please vote? The vote's closed.
Right, the ayes have it. 23O-1695, an ordinance by Finance Exec authorizing the mayor on behalf of the City of Atlanta to grant a temporary easement over a portion of city-owned property consisting of approximately 12,316 square feet located on State Route 14, also known as Murphy Avenue, part of the Beltline Trail in land lot 106 of the 14th District, Fulton County, Georgia, to GDOT for the construction, improvement, maintenance, and operation of the GDOT right-of-way project, number of which is indicated, waiving any conflicting provisions of Article 10 of the code, and for other purposes.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, we've got a motion. I'll second it, but let's fill in some detail about the project, please.
Okay. I'm Cheryl Glenn Snooks, Director of Real Estate for the Department of Enterprise Assets Management. The project is a road improvement, first refurbish project, and the area that GDOT is needing is along Murphy Avenue, just southwest of Brookline Street, and it's a temporary easement. Once that construction has been completed, the easement will be terminated.
Anyone else with any questions or comments? All right, there's been a motion and a second. Let's open the vote, please.
The vote is open. The vote's closed.
Thank you. The ayes have it. 23O-1696 is an ordinance by Finance Exec authorizing the Chief Financial Officer to write off Department of Aviation outstanding accounts receivable in the amount of $641,276.12, where it's been determined that such accounts are uncollectible, and for other purposes.
Good afternoon. Nydia Farnum, Assistant General Manager with the Department of Aviation. What we're seeking is authorization to write off several customers' accounts receivable. One of these accounts is due to a confidential legal settlement. We received the settlement payment, and per the agreement, the remaining balance should be written off. The other accounts, we've simply exhausted all collection efforts, and general accounting principles require that if the account is deemed to be uncollectible, it be written off. So we have a reserve at 100% for these accounts, and all that is required now is your authorization so that we can move forward with the write-off.
And I don't recall aviation bringing too many write-offs to this committee. Do you happen to know what the frequency is of that?
I think we have had, if I recall, one other
Two.
legislative
All right. The
write-off.
studio audience says two.
And we've had a few administrative write-offs. So the administrative write-offs are less than 10,000, and those go to our Department of Revenue down here, and then Mr. Bala approves them. Anything over $10,000 has to come before council.
And then before I turn it over to Mr. Wan, the vast majority of this is because of one entity, correct?
Yes, and it was due to a confidential legal settlement.
Okay, Mr. Wan.
So what accounts are these? What revenue generating activity are these accounts associated with?
One was the rental of the old GIC building. That was the legal settlement. And the other ones are just, I don't recall, but they're based on audits, security badge audits.
And is there a reason why those aren't detailed out in the legislation versus just one lump sum? Because when I read it, I thought it was just one account.
There should be an Exhibit A. I can get that for you if you did not get it.
That the
But
legislation references, I don't see it in ELMS.
I can get you that exhibit. It does have the detail for the invoices and the customers and the dollar amounts.
Okay. And in terms of the confidential legal settlement, if we needed more information about that.
I can get you the settlement as well.
Okay. But that would need to be protected under attorney-client privilege, right? Since it's confidential?
The settlement itself is rather broad. We
Okay.
would probably need to reach out to the attorney if you wanted more detail.
Okay. Well, whatever you can provide to us would be great. And that way, if we have additional questions between now and Monday, we can follow up with you on that.
Will do.
So can we confirm whether there is a schedule for the other payees, please? Not.
No, there isn't. Mr. Chair, no, there isn't. And typically, if there's an exhibit, it's typically referenced for the council. There is no exhibit.
All right.
We'll
So
get you that.
okay. So then I'm going to make a motion to approve on condition that we get that schedule, make sure it's attached to the legislation by Monday.
Well, Mr. Chair, there is. I apologize.
Is
It's not
there?
attached to the legislation, but it is in ELMS, yes.
Okay. So then,
There's no reference to it. Perhaps we should make, yeah.
no, there is a reference to Exhibit A in the legislation. It just isn't, I can't see it. So that may be a clerk issue in terms of, this isn't the first time this has happened with legislation and exhibits that we can't see. And I think it has to do with how the meetings are loaded up into ELMS, but I do think going forward, it's important that we can have access to that. So I'll withdraw that motion and just make a motion to approve.
All right, I will second that. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, let's open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote's closed.
All right, the ayes have it. 24-0-1001 is an ordinance of Mr. Bonds authorizing a donation in the amount of $1,000 to Morehouse College from the Post 1 at-large carry-forward account pursuant to the code section indicated here of the city charter to support the MLK Jr. Memorial Chapel renovation project and for other purposes. I'll make a motion to approve. A second by Mr. Winston. If there's no questions, let's open the vote.
The vote is open. Will everyone please vote? Will everyone please vote? The vote's closed.
All right, the ayes have it. 24-0-1002 requires a substitute. I will read the proposed substitute caption. This is an ordinance by Mr. Amos, as substituted by Finance Exec, waiving the code section indicated, which is the sole source and contract formation, to authorize the mayor or his designee to execute a professional services agreement with Royalty Atlantic Advisors, LLC, on behalf of the Atlanta City Council District 3 office for a period of 2 years, retroactively effective January 15th of this year and ending December 31 of 2025, in an annual amount not to exceed $90,000.00 to ratify the services rendered in connection with the agreement from January 15th of this year. All contracted services being charged to and paid from the accounts listed herein, authorizing a transfer of $50,000.00 from the District 3 carry forward account to this District 3 expense account and for other purposes. Ms. Kempson Wright.
Good afternoon.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
The substitute is before us. Motions to approve on substitute. Well, I'll second that. Does anyone have any questions? Keep up the good work. Please, let's open that vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
Item is approved on substitute.
Mr. Chair, if we may go back to item number 8.
Yes. And the substitute. Nope. Yep. Okay. Let's take them one at a time. So I'll read the substituted caption for 24-0100-0002. This is ordinance by Mr. Bond, as substituted by Finance Exec, authorizing donation not to exceed $500 to the Atlanta Alumni Chapter of the Delta Sigma Theta Sorority, Inc. from the Post 1 at-large carry-forward account pursuant to the code section indicated in the City of Atlanta's charter to support the centennial celebration of service and for other purposes. I'll move to bring this forward. Second by Juan. Let's open that vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
All right, the substitute is now before us. Yeah, this plugs in the amount, which is $500. There's allegedly been a motion and a second made. I have no idea. It was the left side of the dais. Juan and Overstreet. Let's open the vote.
The vote is open. Will everyone please vote? The vote is closed.
All right. Let's go to Ms. Waits' carry forward recommendation or ordinance, and we have a substitute for it.
Mr. Chair, we do not.
You don't?
We don't. There are a couple of organizations. I think one of them is the Concerned Black Clergy, and the request, I think, is to do something on Monday. Can you clarify that for me?
Forward with no recommendation.
Santana gave me the language, and I can't remember.
On condition,
would
either
be-
one, whichever you prefer.
Send it forward with no recommendation.
Thank you.
On condition of receiving the substitute.
That's
that plugs
what
in
she
there.
said. Thank you so much.
I'll make that motion. Second by Mr. Juan. Go ahead and open that vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
All right, thank you. The ayes have it. We'll take that up Monday. 1008 is an ordinance by, okay, we did that one. I thought that sounded familiar. All right, we're on to resolutions. 24R3011 is a resolution by Dozier, Lewis, Waite, Swan, Bond, Faroki, Norwood, Hillis, Overstreet, Boone, Amos, Hillis, Bakhtiari, Westmoreland, and Winston, supporting the passage of Georgia House Bill 451, recognizing the imperative to provide essential health support, mental health support, and specialized insurance coverage to first responders facing occupational post-traumatic stress disorder and for other purposes. I thought I recalled putting my name to this paper, and so I would like to amend it to add my name, which I think may already be on it. All right, just a second by Ms. Bakhtiari. Let's go ahead and carry that vote.
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to thank the author. I think this is a great bill.
All right, well, Ed, let's carry the vote on the amendment.
The vote is open.
And the principal,
The vote is closed.
all right, paper's been amended. The principal sponsors here, Mr. Dozier, welcome. Welcome back.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, colleagues. I know there's a lot of support for this. I know I see a lot of phenomenal names on this paper, so thank you for your support. I'm not buttering you up, I just want you to know I appreciate you. But just wanted to give some context why I thought this legislation was so important. I actually had intended on trying to do something specifically for the city of Atlanta to support our first responders, and then I learned that there was an effort underway at the state legislature. Representative Devin Seaball and Representative Greg Kennard. It's a bipartisan bill, House Bill 451, that's been in the works at the Georgia Assembly since last year. And what's remarkable about the state effort, beyond it being bipartisan, but it has the support of the Georgia Municipal Association as well as the Association of County Governments, and it's a preemption paper. So to have a preemption legislation that has the support of the institutions that are fighting for municipalities and localities across the state of Georgia says a whole lot. And so not only does this paper support the need to support our first responders and support that legislation, but it also calls on the city of Atlanta to explore ways in which we can get this program underway before the state legislation comes into effect. That legislation will likely pass the state. If it does pass, or when it passes, we will be required to do this by July the 1st, which is when it will take effect. So as the largest municipality in the state of Georgia, my ask of our city is to look at ways in which we can implement this more quickly. I have a meeting that we're working on with the Department of Human Resources to figure out how we can potentially move that forward. But once again, thank you to all of you as colleagues. This is an issue that's near and dear to my heart. Just for general public's awareness, I am a 6-year military veteran serving in both Iraq and Afghanistan, and I've seen firsthand the challenges that many people who now have served our country face when it comes to post-traumatic stress, but people who are living their everyday lives. You don't have to be out in the trenches to suffer from post-traumatic stress. You might be in a car accident. You might have any other way that you've experienced trauma can deeply affect you for the rest of your life. But at the very least, we want to say as a city, as a state, as representatives of our government, that the folks who are in the trenches, on the front lines, at the very least are getting the support they need, and considering that they suffer from this in the line of duty. So I'm happy to answer any questions, but just want to say thank you once again for being willing to put your name on this paper.
Thank you. Ms. Waits.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to thank you again for the legislation. I think it's a great piece of legislation given the need to discuss mental health, and so I'm grateful. Thank you.
Agreed. Ms. Bakhtiari.
Thank you. Councilmember Dozier, congratulations on finding a way to come back to FEC. But no, I just wanted to commend you for this paper. I also wanted to give a shout out to Representative Kennard, since he will not be in the legislature anymore because of redistricting. So I do hope it passes, but excited to support you on this and move to approve.
All right, let's open the vote to approve as amended.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dozier. Do you have any other papers to come before us today? Okay. We are going to take, unless there's violent objection, items 12 and 13 together. They are 24R3012, resolution by Shook authorizing the chief financial officer to refund customers for overpayments to water and sewer accounts in the amount of $121,585.67. All funds being charged to and paid from, etc. The companion is 24R3013, resolution by Shook authorizing the Commissioner of the Department of Watershed Management to adjust water and sewer service charges on certain customer accounts in accordance with the code section indicated to the tune of $103,931.37. And for other purposes, I'll move approval of both. Mr. Wine has a question.
Thank you. So I'm looking at the first one, the refund of sewer charges, and in this table, it says 2 of them are customers that were authorized in previous legislation, 23R4556. I don't know that I've seen that before, and I just want to make sure we're not double refunding that. And I can't pull up the other legislation to find out what action that took, but just wanted an explanation of that.
Jonathan Williams, DC Finance for the Office of Watershed Management. I will check, but I don't think we will double refund anybody. We go through these fairly.
Yeah, because the description says refund. Customers do a refund due to a leak adjustment that was authorized by council under 23R4556. And the caption for that one is a refund paper. So I don't know why we are refunding in a separate paper anyway.
I'll check into it, but we do our best not to refund twice.
Yeah.
No, good question. And can you run that to ground while we take up our other business today?
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Ben, Ms. Waits had a question. Oh, okay. Thank you. Let's set that one aside. Yeah, let's go ahead and do just 3012, and I'll move approval. 3013, pardon. So I'm going to move approval of 3013. Second by Mr. Hillis. Let's open that vote. And we'll come back.
The vote is open.
3012 when we're ready. All right, the ayes have it. We will move on to item number 14, which is 24R3015, resolution by Finance Exec, authorizing the mayor to execute amendment number 1 to add the Department of Transportation of Atlanta, the Atlanta Police Department, and the Department of Public Works as authorized users of the agreement, the number of which is indicated. A, citywide electrical services with Brown Electrical Services, an agreement with as indicated, and B, citywide electrical services with MWI Electrical Contractors on Inc. for electrical repairs at various locations on behalf of the Department of Enterprise Assets Management in an amount not to exceed $220,000 per contract. All contracted work to be charged to and paid from the fund, department, and organization and accounts listed herein. Mr. Davis.
Good afternoon, Council Member Shook and other members of the council. Named Chris Davis, Interim Commissioner for the Department of Enterprise Assets Management. Purpose of this legislation is to add the departments mentioned, the Department of Transportation, DPW, and APD.
Any questions for Mr. Davis? Motion to approve by Juan, which I will second by Ms. Overstreet. Let's open the vote.
The vote is open. Will everyone please, the vote is closed.
Ayes have it. While Mr. Davis is still up here, let's go to 24R3016, resolution by Finance Exec, authorizing the mayor or his designee to execute special procurement, number of which is listed here. J.C. Burdine Neighborhood Center roof repairs with Teamwork Investment Group on behalf of the Department of Enterprise Assets Management pursuant to the code section indicated for a term of 2 years with 2 one-year renewal options in an amount not to exceed $435,000. All contracted work will be charged to and paid from the sources indicated.
Hey, good afternoon again. Yeah, this is just entering into an agreement with Teamwork Investment so that they can replace the roof over J.C. Burdine.
And it's a special because?
Because of the terms in which we were trying to, the initial portion of the work that we was trying to get done and then to execute the contract.
Any other questions or comments? If not, a motion to approve by Juan, second by Hillis. Let's open the vote.
The vote is open. Will everyone please vote? Will everyone please vote? The vote is closed.
That takes us to 24R3017, resolution by finance exec authorizing the mayor or his designee to execute sole source agreement indicated with Airport Safety Operations System and Airport Safety Management System at Hartsfield Jackson Atlanta International Airport with GCR Inc., doing business as Tadera pursuant to the code sections indicated here on behalf of Aviation for a term of 3 years, effective March 29 of this year, of 2024, with 0 renewal terms, options rather, in an amount not to exceed $366,768, all work to be charged to and paid from, etc.
Good afternoon. My name is Sharon Brown. I'm representing the Department of Aviation as Assistant General Manager of IT Operations. And this Airport Safety Operations System would allow the airport to maintain their PAR 139 requirements of recording incidents and also being able to charge back for any incursions that occur. And tracking that would allow us to stay compliant. It also would alleviate the ability of having to manually put in work orders to get the mitigation of the work completed. And so this legislation approved us for 3 years. Up until FY 2026.
And it's a sole source because?
It is. Tandera is the only manufacturer and sole proprietor of their software licenses and maintenance and support.
Any other questions or comments? Motion to approve by Juan. I'll second it. Let's open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
All right, the ayes have it. Are we ready to go back to item 12? Yeah, watershed.
Williams.
Oh.
Yes, we got the detail for that and can provide that to you. It articulates the entire transaction from the adjustment that took place on the account to the overpayment. So it's not redundant. It's the complete action. I was seeking to get a copy of it, and I will provide that to you.
So just to clarify, the first paper authorized the adjustment. We're just following up now for the actual refund and payment of the adjustment.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. I'll make a motion to approve.
Second by Bakhtiari on Juan's motion to approve. Let's open the vote.
The vote is open. Will everyone please vote? The vote is closed.
All right, the ayes have it. That brings us to, if I'm not mistaken, the Moving Atlanta Forward Audit Report.
That's correct, Mr. Chair.
Rebecca Robinson, Performance Audit Supervisor, City Auditor's Office. Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
Today I'll share the findings and recommendations of our performance audit of the moving. How are you doing? Yes, we're back for a second time today. Our findings and recommendations of our performance audit of the Moving Atlanta Forward Infrastructure Program 2023 annual review. The team for this audit was Amanda Noble, City Auditor, Stephanie Jackson, Deputy City Auditor, Michael Jones, Audit Manager, Imani Adams, Senior Performance Auditor, Nika Benton, Performance Auditor, and myself. We'd like to thank city employees for their courtesy and cooperation throughout the audit. Objectives, or objective singular. We undertook this audit as required by Ordinance 22-0-1369, adopted by City Council in May 2022. City Council requires the City Auditor to conduct an annual review of financials and project delivery for the program and present findings to Transportation and the Finance Executive Committees. This is the first of those required reports. The objective that guided this audit was our controls in place to ensure that Moving Atlanta Forward projects adhere to established budget, scope, and schedule requirements. The scope of the audit was the program's project delivery framework. Background. This is Exhibit 1 on page 2 of the report that shows the funding breakdown of the program. Ordinance 22-0-1369 authorizes the $750 million program, which is funded in part 47% by T-SPLOS for capital projects, including streets, sidewalks, and bridges. Voters also approved 2 general obligation bonds totaling approximately $400 million, which represent a combined 53% of the funding. The horizontal infrastructure bond totaling $190 million will be used for parks, trails, and transportation projects. The vertical infrastructure bond of $210 million will fund new buildings and building renovations for public safety and parks facilities. The bonds also include $36 million for council discretionary funds, allowing the council member in each district to use $3 million for neighborhood projects that are not already funded by the program. The program is administered through the mayor's office, but 3 departments directly oversee the projects: the Departments of Transportation, Enterprise Asset Management, and Parks and Recreation. Enterprise Asset Management oversees projects funded by the vertical infrastructure bond, and Transportation and Parks manage projects under the horizontal infrastructure bond. This slide summarizes our findings, which I'll go over in detail in the subsequent slides. Program controls are consistent with best practices. This is Exhibit 6 on page 12 of the report, highlighting the controls in Section 5.2 of the Strategic Delivery Plan. City Council put controls in place for the program by approving the Strategic Delivery Plan, which provides a detailed framework for managing projects. The guidelines in the plan are generally consistent with best practices and include controls to track whether projects are within budget and on schedule, whether project deliverables are met, and any changes in contract terms. The GAO's Green Book outlines 5 components and 17 principles of internal controls. The plan covers 16 of the 17 principles. Departments did not complete the project management plan or monthly variance reports before the construction phase. This is Exhibit 7 on page 13 of the report. The graphic shows strategic delivery plan controls throughout the life cycle of projects. The projects in the pre-construction phase, for projects in the pre-construction phase, we reviewed available documentation to determine whether departments documented activation phase controls. We found that Parks and Enterprise Asset Management had not completed project management plans, which are required to be completed prior to the construction phase, or monthly variance reports. although the progress of these projects may not have triggered the need for these reports. Transportation's projects had not yet begun. If departments do not comply with strategic delivery plan controls, projects may be delayed and departments may overspend project budgets, which is why the plan calls for these controls to be implemented in the activation phase. The program dashboard should be fully implemented by developing written procedures to collect and validate data and keep the information up to date. A consultant, in collaboration with transportation staff, developed a dashboard for the program that includes project status, budget, encumbrances, and paid amounts as required by the strategic delivery plan. This is a screenshot of the dashboard from June. Which is Exhibit 9 on page 16 of the report. AIM updated those data based on the information that departments provided, but does not validate the data beyond basic logical tests. Although the dashboard is still under construction, we identified discrepancies in the data, including missing line items in City Council discretionary funding and outdated data. Transportation stated it is in the process of documenting these procedures, and executive office staff told us that the dashboard will be assessed for functionality and compliance when it is complete. The infrastructure program should implement processes for tracking soft costs. The strategic delivery plan does not outline steps for tracking soft costs, which are the administrative expenses associated with projects. In our previous audit of Renew Atlanta projects, we found that failure to track soft costs may have contributed to projects going over budget. So it is important that the program has a consistent definition and tracking method for these costs. Departmental staff told us that they have not received direction from the executive office on tracking soft costs. In October 2023, executive office staff told us that the office is exploring systems for tracking soft costs and plans to implement one by the beginning of 2024. Of 207 projects slated for completion, only 48 have begun. This is Exhibit 11 on page 18 of the report that shows the number of projects in the life cycle phases. The strategic delivery plan separates the 207 total projects into 5 batches based on when the projects are scheduled to begin activation. The first batch includes 94 projects that should have been in the activation phase by the end of 2023. Departments reported that 49 of the Batch 1 projects had not yet started. We reviewed ATL Cloud P&G task status, expenditure details, and commitment reports for Moving Atlanta Forward projects to determine the paid amounts and encumbrances as of August 2023. Parks encumbered about $2.5 million and paid about $10 million, and Enterprise Asset Management encumbered about $7 million and paid almost $1.4 million. Transportation had no reported encumbrances or expenses in ATL Cloud at that time. In October 2023, transportation staff told us that the department may revise the sequence of its projects. Staff from 3 departments told us they have faced challenges hiring project managers, a requirement of the activation phase. This is Exhibit 14 on page 20 of the report, showing the salaries of project manager positions. The strategic delivery plan states that each department should have dedicated project managers, although staff told us that the salaries have made it difficult to fill these positions. The salaries range from a minimum of about $51,000 to a maximum of $98,000, which the departments do not consider competitive for the minimum qualifications required. Until project managers are hired, city employees in each department are functioning in these roles. According to executive office staff, the departments have project manager positions available that they are actively trying to fill. and Parks and Enterprise Asset Management projects are not at risk of falling behind schedule because existing employees in those departments are administering them. Because departments have been unable to fill vacant project manager positions, the current staff have other obligations. Projects may fall behind schedule and lack adequate oversight. Executive office staff told us that departments are authorized to hire project managers above the salary midpoint, but are concerned with ensuring that salaries of new hires are equitable compared to those of existing staff. Recommendations. We issued three recommendations to help maintain project budgets and schedules, which we issued to the Deputy Chief Operating Officer because he has promoted a programmatic rather than departmental approach to managing projects. The Deputy Chief Operating Officer agreed with one recommendation and partially agreed with two because he stated that departments are responsible for implementing controls. Our recommendations include the following. Ensure that departments are completing project management plans, monthly variance reports, and the RACI matrix during the activation phase, and that ongoing training is provided to departmental staff on those procedures. Assist the departments in developing written procedures for ensuring dashboard completeness and accuracy, and assist the departments in developing a system and written procedures for tracking soft costs. You can find the full report at the link provided. I'm happy to respond to any questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I don't want to go over the same ground that was already traversed earlier today. I do have a couple questions, and I'm not on the committee, so forgive me. It's interesting. How did you pick who, in effect, was the audit subject? In other words, the person to whom the recommendation should go and that you expect to hear back from, given the multi-departmental involvement here?
There has been a deputy. Do you want me to respond? Okay. There was a deputy chief operating officer that has been overseeing kind of the progress of the projects and monthly meetings, and he's the one we issued the recommendations to. He did receive comments from all the departments on where they were at when they compiled the management response form.
I mean, I don't know that he has the unilateral authority to effectuate these various recommendations, but hey, Ms. Noble.
I'm sorry?
Hey.
Amanda Noble, City Auditor. We also, I mean, since the idea of the program was for the three departments to work together, we made the recommendation to the person who is overseeing the three departments.
So one of the problems, evidently, is the salaries allotted for contract management appear to be non-competitive.
That is what the departments told us, and we are, like everybody else, waiting for the results of the compensation study. I think in relation to the minimum qualifications listed, I believe that is probably true.
I guess let's bring a representative from the administration up here, because I think they may be best positioned to answer that and some other questions. So these are projects that need to be pushed out. They're on different timetables. I mean, you don't really plan on waiting around a year or two for a compensation study, do you, to get the project management needed?
First of all, let me say hello, Council and FEC Committee. I'm Lisa Benjamin, the Chief Operating Officer for City of Atlanta. I'm pleased to be addressing your comments today. The first thing I wanted to share was that this was a point in time when they took the audit, and so some of these issues have been resolved. I have some current data and information that might be helpful to this conversation. Would you like me to go through that? Kind of where we are even with the staffing, because the staffing numbers.
I wouldn't say that anything you could do to improve our morale, you should take advantage of.
All right. So I just want to save you some time, maybe, because we might go through all these questions and I give you the answers.
Feel free to, copy us
Perfect.
with wherever your written materials are, but I would certainly invite you to, let us know that things aren't this bad and they're getting better.
Absolutely, and I think that's my job, right? I'm the Chief Optimistic Officer. So for the city, so thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. First of all, I just wanted to point out one of the things that I think got everyone's attention is it said 48 projects out of 207 are not started. So that was the first thing. But that 207 projects is through the year 2027, which is in one of the charts. And so for 2023, there were 94 projects that should have been started or activated. And in August, there was approximately, I think, about half, which is just past the half year. So currently, 82 of the 94 projects have been started. And so also, as it relates to staffing, and those projects were mostly the ones that hadn't been started we started 36 in that last 6-month period, were in Department of Transportation. And currently, they have 25 slots for project managers. In August, they had 9 filled. Currently, they have 18 filled, and they have 4 pending offers where they'll have 22 filled close to in the next few weeks. So in that 6-month period, there only be down about 3 project managers. So as of today, most of those positions are filled or in the process of being filled. Similarly, there's a number of positions in their entire department that are critical to advancing projects that have been filled. So they have, in the last several months, filled about 15 positions, and they have about 17 that are pending in the recruitment process right now. So that's about 30 staff members across the department in different areas that will impact this. The other thing you should know is that we have the general consultants that support this work. And so when we've had issues in the marketplace of getting competitive salaries, then we have looked through of using some of those contracts to keep the work going. So we're not just stopping and waiting. But when you look at a point in time, so this report was around August 2023, that would have been 2 months after the fiscal year started, and we were just beginning some of those recruitment efforts and some of those efforts with the new fiscal year budget. So I just wanted to provide the context for that. In addition, we use staffing services to supplement staff, and we've been working pretty closely with Department of Human Resources, and I have DC Roberts here who can provide some more information regarding the hiring and recruitment and pay-in-class study and where we are with things we're doing for long-term to make sure we have competitive rates, but also that we don't create compression within the department when we hire PMs, because we hire everybody at the top. You have people that have already been there, so it creates compression. In the marketplace right now, you have a significant labor issue because there's a shortage of labor. So we're doing all of these things to address that. I think the other thing related to the recommendations, the project management plans, the dashboard, and the soft costs of tracking are all things that we agreed need to be updated in our system. And we do have the DCO working with all the departments as part of the portfolio assignment so that there can be consistency. And as we have gotten this feedback, then there'll be some checks that we add to make sure everyone's reporting in the same way. I think one of the things that this will allow us to have is next year when we do this audit would be in real time because the dashboards would be up to date and some of those administrative things would be in place, and you would have a full year of full staffing. So right now, we're pretty close to full staffing, and we also have been working with procurement, and they will have a dedicated team that's going to be working just on the items for the Move Atlanta Forward as it relates to construction and activities that happen after the pre-activation status. The other thing I wanted to mention is on this report, so I think the chart that's not on here is on page 19 of the audit report. And so if you look at that chart, it says not started 48 for transportation. They've added 36 of that 48. It's now been started. For parks, they have 0, so they were on track. For enterprise assets, that project has been started, and the 5 projects that are in activation and pre-construction are at 80% design. So those projects will be moving forward. And so I wanted to bring this information to say, one, we are on track, and I think we have more information about the work that's being done in all of our departments than probably we've had in some time. And for some of these issues, it does take some time to staff up. The other issue is the money coming in to be leveraged, and I think Chief Bala can speak to that, is that, you know, we also had a time period where the funds needed to be in place. And as you know, we can't procure things or hire people when our funds are not in place. So that was just some additional information I wanted to share, because we are well aware of how important this project is to deliver to the public, and we are laser focused on making sure we deliver those results.
Yeah, we're kind of de facto project managers when it comes to public input. I can tell you that. I've just got one more question, and I'll turn it over to those who have put their names up. How's your capacity in terms of the legal right-of-way work that has to precede just about all these projects?
I would have to get, I think since there's 94 projects, I know that that's part of the pre-activation steps before it gets to, it gets into the part of the design and the pre-construction. So we would have to give you an update. But generally, I understand that those processes should be fairly well on track. I think Dean is right here. You want to speak to that, Commissioner Davis?
Yeah, so good afternoon again. Yeah, so that responsibility initiates in our office, but we have been coordinating with ATL DOT to be able to utilize some of the services that they have so that we can minimize the impact of born the right-of-way acquisition that we need to have.
Are you confident you have the capacity there? Do you have any concerns about that?
So the capacity, like I said, again, working with ATL DOT, they have the capacity, but we're just overseeing the process, so we make sure that we're in alignment with what our requirements are. But we're utilizing their capacity to be able to make sure that we don't impact these projects.
Ms. Overstreet.
Thank you. I see the gang's all here. So thank you very much, COO Benjamin, for coming today, for sure. I know that you heard that during our Transportation Committee, it was extensive, probably a little more extensive than anyone had expected. So most of my questions were answered. I am glad you did bring some stats and information for us. My ask is going to be that we bring the group together at Transportation for just a standalone Moving Atlanta Forward presentation update, so that we're not talking about snapshots on our new dashboard, which I do like. I really do like that dashboard. I'm going to spend a little more time with it, and I'm definitely going to make sure that my constituents know about it. I'm going to do that via newsletter and however else we get things out on platforms, because I think that's important information. And also, where this audit is concerned, I think that it's good that we've done this self-check, for sure. I like the fact that we don't like how we're not checking off our boxes for like the activation and everything. I've really gone over between these two committees, I've gone over the handout that you all passed out earlier today, and same here. And that particular page, I believe it was 6, I'm not sure. That particular page, I think, is invaluable. And if we meet these marks, yes, it's page 6. If we are using this as a rubric and meet this mark right here, I can't see how we won't start completing our projects like we're supposed to. So I'm glad we had this audit today, and I'm certainly glad that you came before us. And so just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Thank you for the feedback, and we appreciate it. And we do work closely with the auditor's office when these audits come through, and the auditor can attest that we have been very responsive because we want to have a first-in-class government, and we can only do that by getting feedback and checking ourselves.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Benjamin, I'd like to direct my inquiry to you respectfully. Perfect. I know we're partners, and I'm grateful for all of the work that this administration does. So on page 7, 202 projects are listed, and earlier in the meeting in transportation, I asked how many of those projects were directed or related to District 12. So that's the first ask. And the second one is, and I'm asking you specifically because I know that you have your hands in many different things, and we did direct this to the Commissioner of Transportation. On page 9, there were 153 projects that were not started, and information was offered as to the reasons as to why it wasn't started, but it's my belief that it really is related to page 10. And my concern was the compensation piece. We have project managers listed with 15 years of experience where the starting pay is $58,000. And so I don't believe that we're going to be able to attract the type of talent necessary to move our projects forward. And so I would like to have a conversation with you and the administration regarding how we're able to increase the compensation level so that we're able to attract the type of talent I believe is necessary to address some of the shortfalls as to why we have not started the 153 projects.
Okay. I think one of the things I mentioned earlier, the grand total of the 153 projects that was showing not started, that goes all the way through 2027.
Right.
So for projects, the only projects that were a part of this auditing period were projects in 2023, and that was 94 projects. And at the time the report was issued, there were 48 that had been started, and currently today there are 82 that are started. So the 153 goes into the next 4 years. So I just want to be clear that the not started number is not 115. So I just want to be clear on that. Especially where we are today. And then secondly, the DC Roberts, oh, there he is here, and he can talk a little bit more specifically to your questions about attracting talent. We share that goal as having best-in-class staff members here.
Good afternoon, committee. Anthony Roberts, Deputy Commissioner of Human Resources. Our class and comp study is coming out. We do realize that we are significantly below market when it comes to attracting talent. Even now, we are competing with private consulting firms as well as other municipalities, federal and state, with the infrastructure that has priority right now. But currently, when we are hiring someone, we know that we're not going to be able to bring someone in at the minimum. That is usually for college graduates with very little experience. So we're looking more at the midpoint. And right now with the class and comp study, they are recommending anywhere from a 15 to a 20% increase in that salary range.
So when the position is advertised, are they seeing the minimum salary is what they're saying? And that's my point. I believe that is probably one of the challenges.
Right.
And when you're asking someone of 15 years, because I don't think you can live in Atlanta at that rate of pay.
Absolutely not. And when we do advertise, we advertise the whole range, knowing that, based on the years of experience, we may bring them in at midpoint or somewhere in between. A lot of times the applicants don't understand that. So, it's a matter of making sure when we contact the applicant that they know, hey, based on years of experience and your education, we could bring you in at more than the minimum. However, we have to take into account the compression and also parity with the current employees as well, because they have to move up as well. We don't want to bring in people with less experience making more than people that are here currently, incumbents in the position.
So what is it that we can do to advertise at the mid-range so that we can at least get the type of quality individuals that we're needing to move forward, given the market that we have today?
Working with the departments to make sure that we know, hey, how much funding do you have for this position? And we can, bring it up to a higher range if we need to do that. Hey, we can offer up, depending on experience and education, we can offer up to this amount.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Mr. Ellis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for your updates and input. CEO Benjamin, I believe you stated you would send that information to us.
The information that I shared today?
I asked this morning if we could get an updated chart.
Absolutely.
That is current.
I'll send a memo to council with the information I shared, and I will update that chart. The one that you're talking about, the one that's on page
9.
19, or
Page 9.
You have the.
Showing.
Well, is it the one
Based on our
that's?
presentation.
Is that, what's the total? That's that one. That's this one, okay. So this one is the one that I'm saying, this one is for 2023 to 2027 of the program. And then there's another chart that they did not provide, but that's in the report, and that shows for the period that we have. So 94 is what is supposed to be, we're being benchmarked against. We can't be benchmarks against projects that are going to start in 24, 25, 26, or 27. So we can provide that chart if you would like. Other ones, this one kind of skews it because it's saying there's 100, I believe there's over 100 projects that don't start till 2 years from now, and you're saying you're missing the mark. So
Well, I think we all
We'll
understand
update
that,
that.
but I'm looking at, I mentioned this morning, specifically in transportation, that I quickly ran through the Moving Atlanta Forward implementation plan, and I've got 5 projects in transportation, I believe 2 in parks that at least I've not even been notified that they've been started on, and I've asked for updates on them multiple times. And there's one that the city is just providing matching money for. That was for 2023 activation, and I can't even get told, well, where's the 80% of the remaining money coming from? And I'm pending some updates on that, so I hope that those updates clear the air on those multiple projects. And the other item, so we heard from HR about the filling the positions, but I know you said we're bringing people into that mid-range, but have we actually adjusted the salary any for those positions? Because, I mean, I understand that, you know, the citywide pay and class study is pending that, you know, we've been talking about for a while, but when departments have specific issues, and we've seen this in planning, as the chair of public safety last year, we've seen this in APD, where we have a specific identified problem, we can go in, put this pay and class study aside for a minute, and increase those positions. We've done that, I said, for planning, for code enforcement, but then the other thing, the reason we had to do it in code enforcement is because we did it, this was for inspectors. People were leaving code enforcement because we did it in planning, and we did it in watershed, and our departments are preying upon each other. So we have to be thoughtful when we do implement those plans and recommendations, but where are we with getting specific to the transportation issue that were brought up with project managers, adjusting those pay rates?
Well, definitely, we have the ability to hire within the range, which we do now. We are doing the pay and class study, which DC Roberts spoke about. But as I mentioned earlier, there's 25 project manager positions, and in August, we only had 9 filled. Today, we have 18 filled, and we have 4 that are pending offers. So by the end of this month, we would have as many as 22 out of the 25 filled within the existing tools that we can use. The pay and class study is a tool that we're going to be using moving forward, and the recent COLA that was implemented is movement towards that even before the pay and class study gets implemented. So we would have the ability we would just have 3 remaining, and those are being in active recruitment. So we have adjusted to make sure we can recruit, and then in the long term, we want to make sure that there's pay parity and equity across our system, and that we're a competitive body. So I feel like those issues, when they were addressed in August, we were looking at strategies to overcome them. And with the strategies we put in place, we have been able to really close that gap. So if you think about that, that's less than August, that's about 4 months, and we've hired about almost all of those positions with the exception of the ones I just mentioned. So we agree with you wholeheartedly, and that's why we put those things in place so that we can, continue to have the great progress that we're seeing with some of the projects. But as it relates to providing information to you and the rest of the council on status of projects for Move Atlanta Forward, we can get with the team and do that in the short term. I have all the information I presented today that I can get you project-specific information. We can provide some additional information for that as well.
Appreciate that. And for clarity, the 9 that's went to 18 with 4 pending offers, 2 questions. Is this MAF wide, or are those specific to transportation projects?
Those are for, all of the project managers are system-wide for transportation. There are 25 go across, but when you have less than half of them filled, it's very difficult, so you're spreading people thin. So those will impact all the areas. And as you might imagine, the work that's being done across the department impacts these projects. So the project manager has a role, but so does the engineer, so does the person that does right of way and permits. So it's important that the positions are filled in total.
And when we get to that 22, considering those 4 pendings that you mentioned, how many vacancies will that leave?
It would leave 3, and they're being actively recruited as well.
And then I guess this, we brought this up this morning, and I guess this is specific to the park side. So Commissioner Cutler, I promised Commissioner Cavanis that you get a little beat up as well. So it's your turn. But when we brought up one of the findings on page 8 of the shorter version, not the full 8 or the full audit, but it is quoted as saying departmental staff told us they have not received direction on tracking these costs, and these costs are soft costs.
Okay.
And I believe the audit specifically references parks as that being where the issue was, and it wasn't an identified issue or an as bad issue, and Ms. Noble can clarify on the transportation or the deem side. So can you speak to how we have cleared that up and that those departmental staff and parks have indeed received direction on tracking those soft costs?
I know that, Commissioner Cutler, do you have a comment? I see you shaking your head. So since he's directed it to parks, I'm going to let you speak to it.
Hey, I'll do it. Justin Cutler, Commissioner of Parks and Recreation. Thank you, Councilmember Hillis, for your question. So currently, Parks and Recreation is budgeting our soft costs within our budget. So we have been using our resources to pay for the soft costs, and working with the Chief Financial Officer, we've identified means of redirecting those soft costs to bond-specific categories. So we're working on moving those dollars and budgeting for those soft costs in partnership with the CFO.
Well, that kind of answers where the budget for those soft costs is coming from, but this, whether they're come out of this budget or that budget, they still need to be tracked and kept to a minimum so they don't explode or expand and, kill a project or us having to re-baseline everything like we did in the 2015 bonds. So as far as tracking those costs, how does your team do that? And have they, changed their practices since this audit finding?
Correct. So we're working with the Chief Financial Officer to track those soft costs and have a process in place to do that.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Chair, that's all I have for now.
Could I offer a clarification? So we, a lot of the data that we identified as being as of August, we sent our draft report to the department in November 7th, but we were updating figures through November. So when we chose to show the status of all 207 projects in MAF, that was a choice. We knew they weren't all part of batch 1, but there was some potential resequencing of projects, and we knew we were going to come back with a second and third and fourth and fifth audit, and we wanted to be able to compare, the project status, of the years. So we wanted to show all 207 projects. So we're not trying to say all 207 should have been started. We said in the text it should have been 97. So I just wanted to offer clarity. There just wasn't the number or the specific projects in batch 1 was a little bit in flux. But the point is that activation was delayed beyond what the original project was intended to be.
Thank you.
So I want to lean into the activation piece a little bit more too, because I think it's great, COO Benjamin, that the numbers you gave us are updated and things are starting to move. But the reality of it is the activation threshold is pretty low. Like the fact, I'll be curious to see what the breakout is and what's still in activation even for this first year of 90 some odd projects, because if you look at what the criteria is, it basically is you just have to assign it to someone, you have to get a quick plan, and boom, you're activated. And that's not, in my opinion, meaningful progress that the community is going to be looking for. So I think it's going to be very important that there's still movement to keep flowing down the line, because as soon as we hit the next year, we're going to be adding in another 90 some odd projects. So I'm encouraged to hear. I'm still a little skeptical, but we're just going to have to keep movement going because in 4 months we're going to be essentially 2 years since the voters approved this bond issuance. And so their eyes are watching us. And I understand from CFO Bala too that the bondholders are watching us too. They've given us a much shorter time frame to execute these projects. So I feel like we've lost a lot of time. It surprises me a little bit because, granted it was a new administration, but a lot of the folks, we were coming off of a previous bond infrastructure initiative. So we got to keep the gas on now. And I think what you're hearing from us is just a sense of urgency and anxiety and a need to keep our foot on the gas. Like I said, keep our foot on the gas as fast as we can. And I appreciate,
Okay, I would say the good news is our first finding is that the framework really is in place.
Yeah. That's good. I mean, I'm encouraged. Again, I like the kind of the rubric that's been established. It allows us to have clarity and the public to have clarity in terms of what we mean by each project being in which box. It's just now we've got to show things are moving. They're moving down the food chain in terms of closer to the finish line. I appreciate the clarity around the soft cost because this morning it sounded like we kind of didn't have our hands around that and that we're still developing systems to track that and that some departments were waiting for direction in terms of the way I interpret it was what was soft cost and what wasn't. And that shocked me because I feel like those are just industry standards. They're not ones that we should make up specifically for the Moving Atlanta Forward project, but that we're following industry practice. So what I'm hearing from you now is that I misinterpreted how it was presented, that actually we are just refining the mechanism, the financial accounting mechanism by which the soft costs that are being incurred are being allocated to the projects, and that the direction was really more how to, as Commissioner Cutler said in his instance, shift the money so that it's allocated properly. Not shift, that sounds really kind of shady, but just allocate it and code it correctly. Your microphone. Your microphone on.
Yeah, it's just the process of allocating the funds appropriately to the capital projects that they were working on. So it goes across for parks as well as DOT and DEEM. And so.
And the reason why I think we also leaned into it, it's a little disconcerting or not disconcerting, that's a heavy word. It raises our eyebrows when we see an audit finding that says partially agree, when it's something as serious as soft costs. So I don't know if there was that was probably an overstatement, but that raised a flag in my head at least, and that's why I think I leaned into that so heavily this morning.
I think that may have had more to do with the fact that we were updating all of the frameworks. Remember, you had the implementation, which laid this all out, the framework, and then there's been more work being done about creating the dashboards. And the dashboards, the data has to feed into it, as well as the financial accounting and aligning all the things. So I actually think people were being honest and transparent that those things are still being finalized and fine-tuned so that we can have a more accurate, transparent process. So I think the dashboard, we had the dashboard, but actually the dashboard was still being tested, and some of the issues that came up in terms of how data is being validated or needs to be validated, some of those things are things that were being worked on, I believe, when that answer was given. So I don't think it meant partial, like we don't know we need to track soft costs. I think it meant making sure there's a mechanism that you can actually validate around soft costs and that all the departments are measuring it in the same way.
Okay. Yeah, I'm rereading the audit language around that, and I still kind of, I got it. Yeah, no, I got you.
It said partial, and then it has an implementation date. So we'll go back. DC Otta's not here, who worked primarily on this, but I'll go back and work with the departments and the DCO to make sure we are clear. here are the soft costs, and for each department, how are we tracking that? And how is it being posted to the financial system? I can do that.
I think
I'm a
there's just also-
CPA, I like that stuff, right?
Well, I think there's also sensitivity around when we've seen other big capital projects where it feels like a lot of the funds have already been eaten up by soft costs and before any shovels go in the ground. And so we're just, again, trying to navigate public perception with what's actually happening. And again, that timeline of we're almost 2 years since the voters approved this. So just, I appreciate all the feedback you've given today. It's helped answer a lot of the questions. The last thing I'll say is about the staffing situation that's encouraging about the success you're having. I just will signal one more time. It feels like council has appetite to make adjustments to salary given the level of work that we have and the level of funding we have. I mean, think about transportation, parks. I mean, we've approved, the public has authorized all this money. We have to deliver. And so let's not get in an analysis paralysis situation where we have to wait for the pay and cost study. We can't create compression. We get all that, but at some point you have to act. So at some point you've got to make some moves and then know that you're going to make some adjustments on the back end because you got to keep the ball moving down the field. So just, I'll send that signal one more time that there is appetite, but y'all have to figure out what the plan is and that you're likely to get support from this side. So thank you, Mr. Chair. Accurate.
Thank you. No, come back. No, I'm the overly talkative closing act. No, I just wanted to, he nodded. I just wanted to ask real quick. They heard from me this morning. I sat in on transportation to comment, but I mean, again, I don't want to overly harp on this for you. You've heard everyone, but it's not, I wanted to have the opportunity to also address this in front of you. And what everyone said around staffing, et cetera, I'm happy for the updates since this morning. But again, I have the issue again of public perception. I have a number of projects that are being funded through MAF, and I think we only have, I think there are less than 5 that or even less than 3 that we have fully funded or mostly complete, that being Trolley Line Trail and DeKalb, which is fantastic. I'm very happy with both of those. But there's a number of other projects that we have done through participatory budgeting, through a number of other things that, again, we are having trouble moving. Spoke with Commissioner about it this morning, and I know that that scaling up has been a problem with staffing and everything else, but anything that we can do to have better communication, to have better understanding of where things are and what the processes look like. Commissioner mentioned this morning an education component. I think he's very right about that. But if there's an opportunity for us to better understand so we can convey that to the constituency rather than saying, I don't know, because I'm not in the business. I have no intention of throwing any department under the bus. We are in it together, but anything that can be done to help with increased communication, because I am not an engineer and I am not a lawyer, but so I'm not Solomon, I'm not as smart as you. So if there's anything that we can do to help with that communication so we can better convey it to the constituency, that would be a massive help, truly.
I think we are going to work on that dashboard. I think that dashboard will be helpful because you will be able to query it, and you will be able to query it by address and district and some of those things, and so that will come up. But as it relates to status of projects, if they're unfunded, we committed to provide some more information of where those projects actually are. And we may have to have some more conversations if there are funding constraints or there are other constraints. So we'll make sure we work with Theo to have additional updates around this project. It's important to all of us.
Yes, thank you.
I think that wraps it up for today. I'll second that. Let's open that vote to accept and file.
The vote is open.
We have one more paper, colleagues.
Will everyone please vote? The vote is closed.
All right, the ayes have it. The report's been accepted and filed. That takes us to our last action item today. It's a held paper. It's item 45. And I will read the proposed substitute. It is 23R4550, a resolution by Mr. Winston, as substituted by Finance Exec, authorizing the mayor to execute special procurement agreement, which is indicated ATL Channel 26 Broadcasting System upgrades with Clark Productions, Inc. on behalf of the Executive Office pursuant to the code section indicated here for a term of 3 years with 2 one-year renewal options in an amount not to exceed $2,457,000, $500. All contracted work will be charged to and paid from the accounts indicated. I'll move to bring the substitute before us. Second by Ms. Overstreet. Let's open that vote.
The vote is open. Will everyone please vote? The vote is closed.
All right, substitute is before us. Ms. Waits, did you have it? Okay. Well, let's hear let's get a presentation on this and dispense with this, if we can. Is anyone here to speak to the substitute, this proposed contract? Anyone want to see it passed or anything? All right, there's been a motion to hold, and I will second that. Any questions or comments? Let's open the vote on the motion to hold.
Who was the motion, Mr. Shook? We didn't hear. I'm sorry, Mr.
That was Mr.
Councilmember
Juan with my second. Well, okay, we have a first responders en route.
Hi, good afternoon.
Hey.
Natasha Lee, Director of Channel 26, Office of Television and Technology. Sorry, I'm a little late. Did you have any questions?
Well, yeah, tell us about the proposal.
So the project.
Why were they selected and what the expectations are, et cetera?
So Clark was selected based on their previous experience and their innovative design that they approached us with. So we're looking to improve the entire control room system, completely upgrade it. It's antiquated and at end of life, so it will involve all new servers and coders. We're also going to be a segregated network so that when there are technical issues, we'll be able to have our vendors remote access in, so we can avoid those things. We're also looking at upgrades to the chambers and committee rooms 1 and 2 for audio visual. So new audio visual system, new microphones, new LED monitors on the walls, better lighting so you guys aren't staring and having to wear sunglasses in meetings and all that stuff. So it's a complete overhaul of the system to bring it up to 2024 and beyond.
Well, some of the upgrades you mentioned certainly are needed. We recognize that. When was the last time the overall system received an upgrade of this magnitude?
2015. And so that is why, technology changes every day. And based on the way that it was installed in the current setup, we're also struggling with even having outside vendors coming in to be able to fix things because the access is limited.
And while that work is underway, will we be able to hold our normal committees?
Yeah, you're looking at about a year to year and a half process of the whole installation upgrade because it's not like a plug and play. So they're going to move us out of the current control room and set us up so that the meetings will not be interrupted at all.
All right, questions or comments? There's a motion.
No, I just had a.
Oh, we're holding it for iPro.
Yeah, we're holding it for iPro. We're waiting on a few more things to submit.
I was hoping I could ask one
all right,
question,
we've
Mr.
accepted
Chair.
the substitute, so it will then remain held, right? We don't have to act on that. Ms. Bacteri.
One question. Thank you. Will we see? Is there any chance of us seeing the same issues that we may have seen in the last month when we were in main where we had to keep relocating committee meetings?
No, hopefully not. So in the interim, we have a contract for an on-site engineer who comes every meeting and checks out the system before. But the challenge has really been because the current broadcasting system sits on the city's network, having people to be able to come in and address issues has been a challenge.
Okay.
So, but once the process gets going and we're in the design process, the meetings shouldn't be interrupted. We're going to work with the designer to make sure. They'll relocate the control room, so it'll still be on the premises, but you guys should be able to operate.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah, we do need to vote to hold this as substituted. There's been a motion made and properly seconded. Before we take that vote, Commissioner, did you have anything to add, or were you just on standby? Or
my recommendation was to hold because of the IPRO report.
Yeah.
So the contract that we are putting in place is going to be for 3 years with 3 one-year renewals. So it's enough time to get all the work done.
Okay, it's a lot of work. Let's open the vote. Formal motion to hold.
The vote is open.
All right, item has been
The vote is
substituted and held. Does that conclude our action items?
That concludes the action item, Mr. Chair.
And Ms. Waits.
Mr. Chair, it's been brought to my attention that a number of our senior high-rises are experiencing third-party junk fees on their water bills. Some of them are in excess monthly of $263, and they're attaching the sewer bills. So I will be emailing this to the Finance Committee as well as the Utilities Committee. And then lastly, it's my understanding that we may have some challenges surrounding the cameras that are issuing citations erroneously in certain parts of the city, and I will also forward some information. And I brought that up given the germaneness to the Finance Committee. Thank you.
Well, we'll look forward to receipt of that. Ms. Bakhtiari, and then I'll have a closing brief comment about a former colleague, if I may.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask a quick thing of finance. So it came to my attention over the weekend, the state of our one warming shelter that is apparently managed by Emergency Preparedness. What I would like to understand is the amount of financing that is being put into that, because quite frankly, the operations of that facility were not up to par in any way, shape, or form. And so if there's a way that you could please send over the financing that we currently have in place to better understand what emergency preparedness budget is, and for anyone that can explain to us why and when this was taken out of constituent services and put into EP, that would also be greatly helpful, because I am not happy. What I saw on Saturday when I stopped by to help was not okay, and I would like to better understand the numbers there, because if there's more money that we need to be advocating for to assist with our most underprivileged population, then we need to know. So any assistance you could offer would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. And just briefly, I want to just recognize the passing of Ann Favre, a former colleague, long-time District 6 council member. She came in with me a million years ago, sat next to me for many years in council chambers. I knew her to be a very determined person. The day she was elected, she was diagnosed with cancer, and she fought it and beat it. And she kept her nose to the grindstone, was occasionally very funny, but just a very determined person. I'm very sorry to hear of her passing, so I just wanted to acknowledge that.
Sorry. I'm so sorry. Well, first of all, let me acknowledge that, and I'm so sorry, Chair Howard, for that experience, and thank you for those words. And I feel very unkind following it up with one more ask, back to regular business. But would it be possible to ask for EP to have some sort of presentation ready for us for CDHS on Monday, because when we go into committee of a whole, because as of right now, I know that they're overseeing this, but they don't report to council. So anything that we can have from them that makes us aware of what the operations are would be deeply appreciated. Because right now we have no idea. Thank you.
All right, anything else? We are adjourned. Thank you.